She thought she could get away with it, taking land that was never hers, pouring millions into a mansion that stood like a monument to arrogance. But what she didn't know was that every brick, every dollar spent, was built on a lie. For the black homeowner whose property she stole, it wasn't just about money. It was about dignity, history, and justice. And when the truth finally came out, the tables turned in a way no one saw coming. How could a $6 million dream turn into the ultimate downfall? For years, Marcus Johnson lived a quiet life on a piece of land his family had owned for generations. It wasn't flashy, but it was his, an anchor of stability and pride passed down through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. Every corner of that property held memories. His grandfather's hands planting trees that still shaded the yard, his mother's laughter echoing from summer cookouts, his own footsteps as a boy running across fields that once seemed endless. To Marcus, this land was more than dirt and deeds. It was proof of resilience, a rare inheritance in a world that had tried to strip so much away from black families like his. He worked hard, paid his taxes, and maintained the property with quiet devotion. Neighbors came and went, HOA boards shifted and changed, but Marcus never imagined anyone could challenge what was rightfully his. And yet, behind the closed doors of the neighborhood association, whispers began to spread. Papers were shuffled, boundaries were questioned, and arrogance took root in the mind of one person who believed power could rewrite ownership. Marcus had no idea that while he tended to his land with pride, someone else was making plans that would shake his world to its core. Because soon, without warning, the soil beneath his feet would become the stage for one of the boldest and most reckless acts of theft his community had ever seen. At first, Marcus didn't notice the signs. A few surveyors walking the edge of his land, clipboards in hand, pretending not to see him as he waved from his porch. Then came the trucks, massive machines that roared down his quiet street like invaders. And finally, the sight that made his stomach turn. Heavy machinery digging into his soil, ripping apart the earth his grandfather had once planted with care. When Marcus demanded answers, the response was chilling. The HOA president, a woman with influence and money, stood on his land as though it were hers. With a dismissive smile, she told him there must have been a mistake, that the property lines were complicated, but her words dripped with arrogance, like she already knew the system would protect her over him. Weeks turned into months, and Marcus watched in disbelief as walls rose where his trees once stood. A mansion worth millions took shape right in front of him. It wasn't just the theft of his land. It was the sight of strangers celebrating barbecues on soil where his family once gathered, the echo of construction drowning out the memories of a lifetime. Marcus tried everything. He filed complaints, brought documents, showed proof that the land was his. But at every turn, the doors closed. City officials brushed him off. The HOA board ignored him. Neighbors whispered but said nothing. It was as if his voice didn't matter, like his ownership, his history. His very presence could be erased with the stroke of a pen. The injustice was unbearable. To watch someone build a $6 million palace on land he rightfully owned, and to feel powerless against it, was a wound deeper than words. Marcus began to wonder if this was how it had always been for families like his. Stripped of their legacy, their claims denied, their dignity buried under concrete and lies. But beneath the frustration, a quiet fire burned. He collected every document, every photograph, every signature passed down through generations. Late at night, he pored over deeds and maps, preparing for the day he could no longer be ignored. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He knew the fight would drag him through courts, lawyers, and bureaucrats who saw him as nothing more than an obstacle. Still, he refused to surrender, because the land wasn't just dirt. It was identity. It was proof that despite everything America had taken from his family, something remained. And if he let it slip away now, it wouldn't just be his loss. It would be a victory for every injustice that said a black man's claim could never stand against power and privilege. The mansion grew taller. The windows gleamed. From the outside, it looked untouchable. But what no one knew, not even the woman who flaunted her new empire, was that Marcus held something stronger than concrete and glass. He held the truth. And when the time came, that truth would bring everything crashing down. The day finally came when Marcus walked into court, clutching the documents that proved the land was his. Years of history, notarized deeds, maps with signatures older than the HOA itself, all bound together like the very heartbeat of his family. Across the room, the HOA president sat poised, confident, with an army of lawyers lined up beside her. To her, it was just another hearing. To Marcus, it was everything. The arguments flew fast. Her lawyers painted him as careless, irresponsible, even unworthy of the property his family had preserved for decades. They pointed to zoning loopholes, technicalities, and paperwork buried in fine print. Each word was a dagger, designed to strip him of dignity and ownership, to rewrite the truth into a lie. But then, Marcus's attorney laid the evidence out piece by piece. Maps that matched down to the foot, tax records paid on time every year, photographs of his family standing proudly on that soil across generations. The courtroom grew still as the story unfolded, not just of land, but of legacy. The judge leaned forward, studying the evidence. For Marcus, every second stretched like an eternity. His heart thundered as he thought of his grandfather's hands planting those trees, his mother's laughter under those branches, all the memories that could vanish with a single ruling. Then came the words that cut through the silence. The property belongs to Mr. Johnson. The construction, therefore, was unauthorized. In that moment, the $6 million mansion that once loomed like a fortress crumbled. Not in stone and glass, but in power and meaning. The woman who thought she could erase him with arrogance and money was left with nothing but shame. Her empire built on stolen ground turned into a monument of her own downfall. For Marcus, it wasn't just a victory in court. It was proof that truth could still stand, even when the odds screamed otherwise. But the question lingered in the air, heavy and undeniable. If one man had to fight this hard just to keep what was rightfully his, how many others had already lost everything in silence? Marcus walked out of that courtroom with more than just a legal victory. For the first time in years, the weight pressing down on his chest seemed to lift. His land, his family's legacy, was safe. But even in triumph, the scars of the battle remained. No one should have to fight this hard, spend years of their life, and stand alone against powerful systems just to hold on to what was already theirs. The mansion still stood, but it no longer gleamed with pride. To the community, it became a reminder, not of wealth but of arrogance, greed, and the dangerous belief that power can erase history. For Marcus, every time he looked at it, he saw proof of resilience, of what happens when the truth refuses to be buried. Yet his story is far from unique. Across America, Black families have lost land, homes, and generational wealth not through mistakes, but through calculated theft, systemic barriers, and laws written to favor those already in power. Marcus's fight was public, loud, and victorious. But countless others have been silenced, their legacies erased without anyone ever knowing their names. That is the deeper tragedy. His victory is worth celebrating, but it shines a harsh light on the injustice still lurking beneath the surface. How many more families have to lose everything before change comes? How many more stories like Marcus's are out there, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be heard? This isn't just his story. It's a reflection of a much bigger struggle, one that continues to shape who gets to keep their dignity, their property, their future. So as you think about Marcus's fight, ask yourself, if justice can be so easily denied to one man, what does that say about the battles we don't see? And more importantly, when will we stop letting history repeat itself?